Yeah. Apparently, there's something called the millennial pause. Have you heard of this before?
I've not heard of the millennial pause.
So the millennial pause is apparently in our generation of doing things, when we would take pictures or start video recordings or whatever, there was a delay between when the camera would start doing its thing and taking the picture and so on and so forth. So it is said by younger generations that when you are talking to millennials on like a Teams or whatever forum, that we pause and then we start to go like when videos start and things like that. And they have named it the millennial pause.
Huh.
So instead of, because video starts automatically now in
Yeah,
places,
everything's just
but
right
we
away.
still, yeah, but we still pause. All right, so fun bit of information that I learned the other day and now have shared
Did
with
not
you.
know that.
All right. Good afternoon, 40K fans. We are the Consortium, and this is the Consortium After Action Review. If you don't know what an after action review is, an after action review is aimed at helping us take lessons identified during the course of a 40K match or battle round or tournament and turning those into lesson learned. And for today's after action review, we are going to be talking with one of the founders of the consortium, Kyle College, and he will be discussing his tournament and what went down at the Lone Star Open. So, without further ado, Kyle, I will have you introduce yourself.
All right. So Kyle, been with the consortium for what 5 6 years now at least. I would think so at this point. But I started playing around the end of third edition into fourth editions when I started getting into 40K. Started with a Black Templar army way back in the day. Played Imperial Guard for a little while. That probably ages me right there, saying Imperial Guard rather than Astra Militarum these days. But then I found my home after those armies were gone. I found my home at Death Guard, so that's what I've been playing ever since. I've been playing Death Guard for a little over 5 years now, and I like to faction specialize with them. It's the only army I play, and I just really like to go with them, whether they're terrible on the tabletop, which they have been for a little while now, suffering through the oppressive Death Guard era right now that we're in, as this tournament had that we went to. We can talk about that more in a bit, but yeah, so a lot of Death Guard players these days right now. But thank you for having me out here.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully you'll be seeing a lot of us as we continue to do this. The the consortium as a team has started to branch out and get into these we'll call them talk shows or podcast events, and so hopefully we'll do several more of these. But truthfully, these are currently aimed at just helping our team improve overall as we're trying to, claim some of the leader spots within the meta. And so, like I said, I hope you see more of that. And then Kyle's being a little bit humble when he talks about himself. He is a faction specialist when it comes to the Death Guard, 100%. He's been playing it, God, it's been as long as we've been a team. And he has topped the charts a couple times, being in the top 10 or top 25 or whatever, at least regionally, for his efforts with the Death Guard. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about that. He's pretty freaking good
Yeah.
when it
You,
comes to
you
playing
suffered a
this
lot at
army.
my hand when I was playing Death Guard for a while there. You've suffered behind the Death Guard for a bit.
Very true. And so Kyle and I were probably regular sparring partners. And if you pay attention to, you know, I was going to go on a tangent about. I've been reading a book about Tim Kennedy lately, and I was going to go on
Yeah.
this tangent about you're the Tim Kennedy, and I'm your like the little guy you beat up. So that's kind of how it is.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, thank you for the tournament
yeah.
prep going into this one because it definitely needed it.
Well, glad you didn't fight any Shadow Legion though, so I
I
don't know
did
how
not
much that
fight
helped.
Shadow Legion on this one, but I was surrounded by them.
Yeah, or Votan. You didn't get any Votan. It's in my
Not a
regular
single
too.
Votan. Actually, Votan really didn't show very much there, but
I think everybody's in pause,
yep.
waiting
Hold
as
breath.
the new
Yep.
new codex has just come out. Um, All right, yeah, I've lingered on a little bit longer than I probably should have. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide here. Okay, this is the agenda for today's meeting. Now you'll notice for any of you that have served time in the U.S. military that this agenda is going to say a lot of military type terms, but fear not for anybody who has not spent time in the U.S. military. It doesn't matter. We're going to talk about things in 40K terms. We're just using an Army style outline. One of the unique things about the folks of the consortium is that almost every one of our players was in the military, is in the military, or is adjacent to the military, as in supporting or has family members within the military. And that's kind of how we started this whole rigmarole with the consortium. So anyway, so you'll catch that theme. You'll see, Kyle's background to show his achievements in his career, and then my we'll call them pictures, probably not so much achievements, but in my background as well. So just for the audience at large is kind of what's going on there. But what we're going to do, we're going to talk about the venue. And kind of mission and layout, that what he went through as we go game by game throughout the whole tournament. We'll talk force organization, which will be the key elements of the lists, his list, and then the opposing forces list. And I said HVTs means high value targets for those of you not in the know. So he's going to talk about what key components were in the opposing forces or the enemy's lists. We'll talk concept of operations, which will be the game strategy, his strategy, and what he perceived the opponent's strategy to be. And then we'll talk key and decisive actions during the game, things that may have changed or upset the course or flow of the game. And then we'll tie a pretty bow on it by talking results and lessons learned. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So Kyle, I will turn it over to you. Tell us about Lone Star Open.
Okay, so Lone Star Open was ran in Allen, Texas this year at the Marriott. Fantastic venue. It's been there a couple times now. I don't know if it was founded there or if it stayed there, but it was a great venue that they had there. Food and everything on site. It was kind of like walking to the hotel at the Las Vegas Open originally, except no slot machines or anything like that. And, it was only about 330 players, I think, was initial sign up, and then 304 when final results at the end came out. We had 304 scored players. So it was a pretty good size, still in the super major category, but it was a really good run up. I wanted to get this run up done because we're also headed to Las Vegas Open this year with a lot of the team. So this one was going to be a really good run up. And then this was my first tournament going in with new Death Guard. I'd never played tournament level with the new Death Guard with all of our new detachments and everything like that. Been very busy with work this year. So it was a really good venue, though. I like the atmosphere. It was a great setup. Tons of great players there. A few really high end players there that you see topping the charts and stuff like that. So, and definitely a lot of team representation out there still. It looked like Tactical Turtle was out there doing the live broadcast, so you can see a lot of the upper games there. There was a lot of Death Guard players. We ended up being about 10% of the field alone, which is a problem at times. But yeah, that'll get itself figured out here in the next data slate, I would assume. But yeah, we ended up being about 10% of the field. And some were pretty unique, but the mainstream was for Death Guard wise. You saw a lot of the hammer of Mortarian's hammer and the Virulent Victorum. So those are the sticky objective one and the vehicle based one. Those seem to be the best detachments right now. I went the opposite direction though, but when we get into my list, I can talk about that one a little bit more.
Awesome. Let's talk about Mission 1, which was Mission O. And if you wanted to take it away, Kyle, what was your impressions of Mission O?
I had to give one last shout out to the venue, though. This is the military appreciation tournament of the year, too. So they did have the Fallen Soldiers table that could not be there with us. So it was great to see that. And Army Esports showed up in force. That was great to see them out there. I actually ended up playing one of the guys when I got into my round 4 on Saturday morning or Sunday morning. But it was great to see all those guys out there. And great shout out to the venue and for taking care of all the military out there. First round was going to be Mission O, Terraform, Crucible Battle, Layout 6. So the Crucible Battle and Layout 6 was the exact same for the first 3 missions of the day. But Terraform coming into it, this is the one where you You can sit on any field objective. Any unit can do it. They do the action, and then every single turn from second turn onward gives you the additional extra point. And then all the other objectives are only worth 4 points to you. So it's nice. Terraform is just a good little bump there, but any point you can make, especially when you're playing at this level, can be vitally important, as it did coming down into my 6th round. It was a 1 point difference. So, but this one was a tougher game for me. Went into Imperial Guard in the first round.
I'll jump in. Let's talk about your list then.
Okay. So my list called 2+, 4++, because I am almost maxed out on Terminators in this list. I've got 15 Death Shroud Terminators that I was running in drop formations for the most part. That is kind of the majority and the meat of this list is those Death Shroud Terminators, because they're basically the best Terminator of the game. They got some of the best rules with 6-inch deep strike, giving their support characters a 4-up feel no pain if anybody does precision attacks and stuff like that, trying to push mortal wounds through. It was fantastic. So that's the main boss of the army, but Death Lord's Chosen is our Terminator detachment. Every single stratagem focuses on Terminators only. The list has a lot of potential for mortal wound output, and then a lot of sneaky things of like being able to fight on death on 4-ups, very key to the list. Having a 2-up tank shock, but it's a Terminator shocks, and being able to just charge in with Terminators and then with a vehicle and be able to do stack, 12 mortal wounds if possible there, and then having Typhus do his. I mean, that can be 18 mortal wounds on a turn with potential like that. So it can be nasty. It can rip a knight off the board in one turn, which there was a couple times I was able to. But that was the majority of the list. The rest of the list is rounded out by particularly my character sets are shows in there. Typhus, he mostly ran with my Poxwalkers the entire event, because good news about that, when Typhus joins Poxwalkers, they gain the Terminator keyword. Then they can use all the Terminator detachment objectives, like 11 models going in on the charge to make mortal wounds. It maxes out at 6, but being able to guarantee that I'm going to get 6 mortal wounds any single fight I go into. It's a very nice one. Then Lords of Contagion, just because they're so good at what they do, dropping them in with sets of 6 Death Shroud. They give them the sustained 1 hits and the Lance ability on the charge, which is fantastic. And then also the Lords of Contagion have the ability to, they die out, they stand back up. At least, or once on a 2-up, they stand back up. And didn't really come down to that too often. But it's usually tricky. And then I also... big things with them, a lot of the enhancements I used, one of the Lords of Contagion would have the Warp Rot Talisman for this detachment, which allows me to uppy downy, which is something Death Guard's never been able to do before. And when people see up and downy Death Guard, they're like, that's a problem, it's scary. The other ones just gave me plus movement, reroll, or reroll advances, and the other one was Lone Operative, which I stuck on my Lord of Rulance, because having a Lord of Rulance with Lone Op is amazing, because he can just spot targets in this list, and he can infect objectives at distance in this list and make all those things basically, or allows everybody in the army just to reroll 1s to hit, or if they're blast weapons, they reroll everything to hit. It's great. So that's kind of the synergies of the list there. A lot of spotting from my Terminators, and then on turn 2 or turn 3, when I hit that go turn point, it's can you handle 15 Death Shroud simultaneously or can't you? That's what this list does. And then my backfield support being 3 Mephitic Blight Haulers. They are fantastic because they're +1 against vehicles to hit, and they're +1 to wound. So most vehicles, they're wounding on 2s and 3s, especially when they get inside my contagion range and those vehicles start dropping in toughness overall. And then the Foated Bloat Drones with heavy blight launchers. Those ones are actually pictured wrong there, but see if you can find a Foated Bloat Drone with a heavy blight launcher right now and let me know, without a scalper's price on it. But yes, so those ones are fantastic because their weapons are absolutely ridiculous. Strength 10, 36-inch range, strength 10, AP -2, flat 3. Based on the contagion I'm using, that can be AP 3, or just basically anytime those things shoot at something, they've been able to remove it. I've rarely had something they didn't shoot at where it didn't just get removed from the board. So that flushes out basically the entire list, and then the end of the list is 3 units of 10 Poxwalkers purely for their infiltrate. They deny fast movers of coming into my objectives turn 1, or they can just score me a lot of points just sitting and doing that, which is a lot of what they did. They rarely got into a fight the entire tournament, but they held objectives against over and over and over, people would try to charge into them. They're T4 with a 5-up feel no pain, so they just stayed on top of it the entire time, and I rarely lost all 30 of them the entire or in any of the 6 games. Rounding up the list, Poxwalkers, they're great infiltrators, they're great units for us. They sit there, they hold objectives, and they can do things unlike Nurglings who have 0C and can't really do anything.
Which I have found out playing Shadow Legion. Very disappointing unit the Nurglings are. Yeah, I was gonna say my thought suffering at the hands of Kyle, like I said, is his sparring partner. You'd mentioned your go round being turn 2 or 3, and what I've discovered playing this list is if you don't have a way of dealing with what is it? It's 15,
Yeah,
16,
15
17, 18 Terminator bodies or whatever in this list. If you can't do it, you're done.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna come, you're gonna shove them right down your throat, and then it's game over.
Mm-hmm.
All right, yeah. Okay, let's go on to your opponent who had named his list "Oil is King."
Yeah, he was very vehicle heavy. So main parts of his list were the dual uh, the heck are those things called? Not Lehman Russes, but the new one, the Rogel Dorns. Rogel Dorns, 50 different guns on them, just heavy hitters. They got so many cannons, and with their pluses to hit when they give them take aim. Even if I was running like -1, which I wasn't running -1 in this one, I was running the -1 AP or to his armor save to try to really punch through those tanks, which works really well. It's great against them. But yeah, if he's got his take aim up and everything, those tanks are hitting on 3s. They get a reroll per thing, so reroll to hit, reroll to wound. Uh, I think they have a reroll damage as well. So he was a combined arms detachment, though. So basically, the big flood of the list. Gaunt's Ghost, that was a big character for him. Those are uppy downy units. They can infiltrate. They are basically just point scores. If you ever run into this unit and you have a chance to kill it, because it will save you, or it'll take 15 points out of your opponent's list that he would have. And that's like scoring points.
Oh,
Yeah. Moving on to the more of the body of this. So yeah, dual Rogaldorn commanders. So giving out orders, double orders, all sorts of really nice stuff. And then the tech priests that were basically attached to them at the hip, so healing any damage. And the engine seers are no slouches. Those things can actually they can punch in combat. Not much for actual shooters, but the buffs that they were giving out to their tanks were incredible. So always running those characters behind. And I couldn't remember if they were if it was AdMech where if they stand so close they're actually lone op. Then field ordnance batteries, so some indirect fire just to sit on his home objectives. In the picture you can see, and they never moved the entire game. They stayed there. They can shoot at anything until I came and touched those things. Then they fell like paper. A Hellhound in there just to have the flamers. The Infernal Cannon is what he had on it. And then Casterkins. Of course, Casterkins, because Casterkins are really, really good. They're great shooters. They're 4-up save bodies, which an Imperial Guard finding an infantry unit with a 4+ save is fantastic. Because everything them are usually just the flak armor 5-ups, things like that. So they can stick around, and for 2 CP, he can bring them back to life after they're killed. So that it's extra points in the list that you don't expect to fight in the list, but great holding units. You can see their loadouts: double melta-gun, double plasma guns, hot shot las guns. They're just really, really good units. So Casterkins, almost any list you go into now, you're going to see triple sets of these. And then finally, why he called it Oil is King. So Lehman Russ Battle Tank, Lehman Russ Vanquishers, and the whole rest of the list was Lehman Russes and Torox. Torox being his little his scout up vehicles, could run guys out of them. But the Lehman Russes being the heavy hitters, a lot of the heavy movers. In the main picture you can see here, it doesn't show you. He actually did have one off the board as well. So it was a triple Lehman Russ list, double Rogaldorn list, and then Torox Primes and the Infernal Cannon, whatever that guy was called, forgot his name. And then the double Scout Sentinels, which are just really nice for the Scout 6, but I was able to counteract the Scouts right away. But yeah, that was the majority of his list. Just a ton of shooting, not a whole lot of close combat ability. Just like shoot you off the board, sit back and do. And you can see from his deployment alone, he was just that's how he castled up. And that's what I expect from any Imperial Guard player that I run into. Unless they're running heavy infantry, they're going to castle in the corner and want me to come to them. Which unfortunately for me, not great.
I've played a few Astra Militarum lists really this edition, and there's a guy on our team named Austin who plays them, and Matt plays them. Although I haven't played Matt in ages. Matt, shout out to you in Germany. My but I had not had a chance to play against the Gaunt's Ghosts, and I heard this on another podcast that I listened to, that this unit is quite the utility unit. So yeah, interesting here you talk about them here. So your recommendation is kill them early and save yourself 15 victory points throughout the game.
Yep, and that's about what they scored in this one alone, not including because they never held an objective in this game. That was purely secondary points they scored for his unit. Because you can see where he deployed him here in the backfield, directly east on the picture. That little group of them back there, that's his Gaunt's Ghosts. And from that position, they picked up once. They dropped onto my side of the board in my deployment zone, basically as a more of a way to try to get me to run back towards my deployment zone. But they just have scoring potential because they needed to be back there anyways, and they could do it every single turn. So, or every single battle round, I should say. So, end of my turn, they pop up, they drop down in his turn, and it was just nothing but points. So, and they are actively like they have stealth. They have so much scoring potential. They are a character unit in there as well, though. So if you can get points, it can be a very big punching if you can get a hold of them. Which usually my flamers would take care of that, but he never dropped it near my Death Shroud, so
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go after that.
All
So
right.
this was our opening concept of the operation.
So yeah, in this segment, just if you would kind of talk me through your game plan. How did you think that you were going to win against this list, and like kind of what was your idea here?
Yep. So this list, I faced a very similar list when I was in the Rocky Mountain Open this year in March. But that was prior to Death Guard, of course, getting our turnover of points and our new codex and everything like that. So I was probably a little bit more outfitted to face them back then. I was running my Twin Knights and everything, but my plan was initially I was going to be on the turn 2 drop and run myself into him the best I could. So I was going to have to run something up the board to get everything infected, because once an army is infected by, or any units are infected by my contagions, which start out at 3 inches, turn 2, 6 inches, turn 3, 9 inches. Once you're infected, all of my Death Shroud can drop at 6 inches, and 6 inches, that's a 90% charge, give or take, of what we roughly usually make, especially on the reroll. So if I can get one of them to land, I know I can get the other one to land on the reroll generally. Sometimes, you just roll double ones into double ones and you score those 5 points. For reference, that was a thing at one of our tournaments that we played. If you rolled a 1 into a 1, your reroll, you scored 5 points automatically. It was great. So that's something that we often reference when me and him are playing.
The continued,
Continued
I guess
score.
the inside joke that just won't go away.
Yep. Yeah. So thank you for the 40K Fight Club here in Denver that ran that event. It was a doubles event. It was it was a good
Yeah.
time. But so that was basically my plan. I knew he could outrange me from the get go, and if I exposed anything, it was going to be gone for the most part. Um, and I ended up getting, so my deployment was keep everything out of line of sight. Really kind of hope for a second turn on this one, but I did end up going first, which in this particular mission wasn't so bad, because you can see on the top northwest objective, I dropped troops there or my infiltrators there, and then eventually moved up a Mephetic Blight Hauler. This is after my turn 1 movement, but got everything into position, and then he exposed. And then on the bottom southeast objective, I also had movers there. So I was able to terraform on the first turn, which I can initiate the action on the first turn and then score it in the second turn. So that was 2 points that I was making up every single turn from then on out, just to start getting me a primary advantage.
Man, and was he able to counter that, or did it take him several turns to?
After turn one, he was able to pick up the bottom right corner, but he had moved. Let's see, what did I draw first turn? Let's check it out. Going through my battles app. So I drew area denial and marked for death in the very first turn. Um, yeah, in round one. So area denial, super easy. I moved a drone to center. That one is an easy 5 points. The marked for death, he of course marked like double Rogaldorns in them in the backfield, but I noticed he had left out a one bot dead center directly east of the center objective. He left this bot exposed. So I pumped out my long range shooting and picked that guy off as a gamma target. So that was going to be my first turn, and then I knew he was either going to have to come out because now I held everything on the board except for his home objective. So either primary was going to run away, he has to come out and answer me, and so he has to get into a fight or get to where he's exposed, um, or I'm going to hide behind the walls the entire rest of the game, and I'm just going to outscore him on primary. So that was kind of where it was going to be set. Um, And then first round for him, he drew a tempting target, which I tempted him with the center, so I was forcing him to try to get to center. If he wanted to score, he was going to have to come to center, and then bring it down, which he was going to get regardless because I had enough drones exposed, and he's got Rogel Dorns and Lehman Russ is sitting there. So I was going to lose, at minimum, I was going to lose a drone. Um, so I don't know. Do we have a second picture here?
Uh,
Yeah.
I think this is the other picture I had.
Okay, so this was second turn. So his initial first turn, he basically moved down here to claim this objective with the Torox Prime and the his flamer tank. I cannot remember the name of it right now. Uh,
Hellhound.
Hellhounds. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a Hellhound and a Torox Prime moved down to the bottom right objective, and he was going to reclaim that one. So they got on there. They of course took my Poxwalkers right off of it, and he was able to claim that objective. But then he had no real ability. He was going to get tied up with me in the center, and he had no real ability to take my top objective. Like he moved a Scout Sentinel up there, but at that point I already had Poxwalkers there. I had a drone there, and I had close support that was going to be coming in. He moved his Casterkins through the wall and tried to claim all three objectives. He was able to hold down the center for a minute, but then it was just going to be he held it, I held it, he held it, and usually that grind out game falls into the Death Guard's favor. And now he's within range of a lot of my stuff for me to start dropping. So you can see I actually went really heavy. I dropped my 6 Death Shroud at the center, and then I dropped 6 Death Shroud in the bottom. And basically, I was going to try to land 6-inch charges because I was able to get him in contagion range at that point. My mistake was, though, I used a stratagem at this part of the turn. I messed up, and I used a stratagem in the wrong phase. Again, first tournament I've had my Death Shroud out at, or my the new Death Guard out at, and I used a stratagem in the wrong phase where I infected an objective. And I didn't have eyes on it with my Lord of Virulence at the initial part of the turn. I got into the movement phase, had eyes on, and that's when I shot it. So we realized the mistake in turn 3, probably the end of 3, we realized it, and he was like, well, that changes the whole game because I was able to drop these Death Shroud at the bottom right target, and I picked up his Torox Prime and his Hellhound in one turn with Death Shroud, and then piled into his Casterkins that came out of those units, killed them, and then was going to pile into his it ended up would have been like almost a triple move on my turn to be able to drop both tanks, kill his Casterkin unit, and tap into his Rogel Dorn, so it was -1 to shoot. I ended up not being within range to get to his guy, so he was saying that this is going to change the whole game. You wouldn't have had that Death Shroud unit anymore if they would have been standing there, and they wouldn't have been able to make the charge. So that could be here nor there of whatever dice might have been, but I took it on the nose. I gave myself the yellow card, and I just said, okay, I lost the game right there. So I just declared that the game was over for me at that point, and then we just played out the rounds. So strategically, and he ended up beating me by 9 points in the end, regardless, anyways. For basically my dice, kind of just as you kind of emotionally feel like, all right, you've already lost the game at this point. Like I've declared that I lost the game, so no matter what, I was going to give him the win, no matter how the points came out. So, but my dice just kind of like they fell off, and like my mood fell off at that point. So I was just like, okay. So, and then he ended up beating me by 9 points anyways with his draws because man, Rogel Dorns can just shoot everything. So if it goes into the next one, I don't know if there is another picture on this one. No.
I think, yeah, and
Okay.
this
No
one
worries.
I had drawn. So let me go back real quick. That I think that's testament to who you are as a player to realize we'd made a mistake, and then we didn't want to capitalize on our opponent just based on some a wrong rules interpretation or read. So good for you on that, and I'm glad you guys were able to play it out and come to a score that was unfavorable for you, but
Oh yeah.
probably the right decision overall.
Yeah, right decision for me in the end. But so, anyways, the my Death Shroud here, a group of 6 in the bottom right and a group of 3 in the bottom right, they all charged in. They ended up flooding that side of the board. He eventually got that objective back after that Rogel Dorn worked through everybody, and he brought the other Rogel Dorn from the north down to that southern objective as well. So I owned center, I owned left, and I owned my home objective for a majority of the game. So primary, I was really good on. Secondary, unfortunately, I did not score the best on. Um, yeah, turn 2, I got established locus, defend stronghold. Those ones were fairly simple. It was kind of a hold center. He got an established locus, and then behind enemy lines, that was the big one. So his that was 3 points for his unit there. His established locus was another 4 points by the same unit, because he established in my deployment zone and my behind enemy lines. And then he get engaged, so that's where another 2 points were. And then finally he cleansed. So yeah, his Gaunt's Ghost unit scored all those points for him. Those were all them solo. That's how dangerous those guys can be. So if you have a chance, take care of them. But yeah, that was probably the most pivotal part, was this down here in the corner. That would have been if I could get that flank to collapse, I knew I could held the rest of the board. So that's kind of what it came down to. But in the end, like he shot my guys to pieces enough, and then once it's onesies and twosies on objectives, like Rogel Dorns are not going to let onesies and twosies live. So it came down to a 9-point loss. If I could go back and probably do this one again, though, if we want to shift that part of it. Yeah, then I had, or he had a challenger card in the end too. That helped it out a lot. Yeah, those challenger cards are definitely very good. But if I probably would have, I probably wouldn't have gone for those initial first turn points with the area denial and the marked for death. I probably would have kept my vehicles a little bit more protected, and then waited for probably a turn 3 drop to let him get a little bit more spaced out to the point where his tanks couldn't shift and assist as much. Basically, they're committed to one side of the board. It's going to take them 2 turns to get to the other side of the board and start working. But I probably committed a little too early on the turn 2. Should have left it for a turn 3, because then I could have picked up at least a tank or 2 with my robots or my drones, between my Mephitic Blight Haulers and my Footed Bloat drones, and let my Death Shroud all work one side of the board. Because I would have gone heavy with drones onto one side of the board and like force somebody to either try to come and take care of that, and then 15 Death Shroud on the other side of the board. There's not many flanks that are going to stand up to 15 Death Shroud on one side. So that probably would have been my only real adjustments in this game. That, and remember when to use my stratagems properly so I don't yellow card myself.
Yeah, you gotta do. It happens to the best of us,
Yeah,
and it's like I said, commendable the way that you handled it and came back and made sure we had an enjoyable game for both players.
yeah, yeah. And
Um,
he,
and
and he mentioned that too. He's like, no, it was a real great sportsman thing to do. And he's a really nice guy. He really knows what he's doing. Beautiful army that he plays as well. So fantastic one. Thomas Greer was his name. Yeah.
Nice. Shout out to you, Thomas Greer. Um, I don't know if you have anything we want to go through specific plays on TTS right now. If there's something we want to draw up, or we can just conclude this one and move on to round 2.
Yeah, we can definitely probably conclude this one and be able to move on to round 2 from here. But yep, no, I know my stratagems very well now. And also, remembering my army rule, like everybody was within my infection range, and I totally forgot that I caused mortals when you're in my infection range at the start of the enemy's turn. Little things like that. But yeah, as I get more tournaments and stuff under my belt, I'll remember it more for now. But yeah, first time out with the guys, it was a fantastic run though. Very good on the first one.